This is your election headquarters on Joy 99.7 FM. And well, it was a big event yesterday, and you could see reactions across the energy ministry, across the constituency of the Menchia South MP, as well as the NPP's main location of the meeting, which was Alisa Hotel. You could tell that the party seemed galvanized by the choice that their flag bearer had made of a running mate. So let's try and figure out the implications across board. Evans Mensah joins us. He is, of course, head of the political desk here at Joy News. He's on the phone. Evans, good morning.
Good morning, Kojo.
Yes, I'm still deriving a lot of sadistic pleasure from waking you up at this time of the morning. But yesterday was a big day for the NPP. But what next? I mean, how does the strategy for their campaign now take shape since the ticket is fully identified?
I mean, we're getting a first sense of what this will mean for the party going forward. Next week, Tuesday, he's going to be outdoored. From what I understand, the first thing they'll do is to formally introduce him to their Santehene. And after that, then they will do a formal outdooring of him at the Jubilee Park in Kumasi. Now, that strategy is very obvious. They really want to tap into the base in the Ashanti region and first do the rightful thing, which is to say that your son, an indigene of the Ashanti region, has been given this opportunity to rise to become the number 2 in this country. That clearly sets a tone for a campaign, for me, that would play out in the next few months with the running mate, Dr. Mathhew Opoku Prempeh, given a particular role as far as the galvanizing of the MPP space is concerned. Shortly thereafter, from what we're learning, the candidate himself, the vice president, will travel to the north to begin his nationwide campaign. He's going to be doing this constituency campaigning. And what my expectation is that you will have the running mate stay in the Ashanti region and do a bit more grassroots mobilization and galvanizing the base there, and also focus in some of the areas where they already have a strong footing across the country. And so then Bawumia can focus on the national picture. That, in essence, is what I expect the strategy to be going forward.
Right. Now, it's interesting. It's been said, ad infinitum, that the reason for NAPO is the Ashanti region and the expectation that he is well placed to galvanize the base there. But what is that actually based on? What exactly is it about NAPO? What is it about his political history or his achievements or performance that makes him the best person to galvanize the Ashanti base?
I mean, first of all, many point to the fact that he is a royal, comes from the PJP, an area very close to the Menchia Palace itself. And that gives him a setting affinity to the Ashanti Kingdom itself, which, if you come from the Ashanti region, that for many people that is very, very important. That's the first thing that people point to, and people you obviously come together around that because you see him as one of your own, and this is your stronghold. The NPP have never won an election in Ghana when they have fallen below 70% in the Ashanti region. So you need somebody who can galvanize that base there and get people out to vote. And one of the things that we need to emphasize, and I guess it's the reason why he's been selected, for every incumbent in our political history in Ghana going into your last term, as in where they are now with the 8th year, your biggest challenge for an incumbent is, when you're going into an election, is galvanizing your base and getting them out to go and vote. Historically, you've seen, and the reason why we've always had parties in their second term losing elections and nobody has managed to break the 8, it's difficult to get your base, your traditional voters, those who always vote for you, to go out there and vote. They will not turn out to vote, and they will not vote for the opposition either, but they will not show up and vote. That energy isn't there. We've seen that since 2000. We've seen it in 2008. We saw it again in 2016 with the John Mahama, and the NPP is going to have to prove that they have what it takes to break this 8. And that is the biggest threat they face. To do that, you need to go back to your stronghold. In 2016, the first time we at the election headquarters got wind of something massive about to happen to the NDC in terms of the defeat that they eventually suffered, was in the Volta region, where we spent days there canvassing the communities and talking to people. And you speak to people in the Volta region, they tell you they were not going to go out to vote. They were just tired. They were not as galvanized. They were not going to vote for the NPP, but they were not going to vote at all. They were not going to go to the polling center. That is the NPP's greatest threat in this year's elections. And that is why NAPO, for many in the party, is the person. Of course, you say, but there are other people from the Ashanti region, right? And that is where the second strength they point to come to play, which is that among the others from the Ashanti region that were up for consideration, as in the Education Minister, Edichum, as in the Chief of Staff. And of course, you know that people would have loved Jos Owusu to be considered also, although he took himself off that tape, out of that consideration. We heard from the majority leader this week tell us that he was considered, but he told me in an interview that he wasn't interested, and he sounded very, very sincere. And subsequently, he's come out to say why, because he had health issues and he really wanted to take a break from politics and focus on other things. So from the other groups from the other individuals who were considered in the selection process and Bawumia's own decision making, which of them had a base in the Ashanti region and has managed over time to grow a strong base of loyal, very dedicated party supporters willing to die for him, but also do the groundwork and put boots on the ground to galvanize the base. And NAPO has done that. Among the national executives, he has lawyers there that he has groomed, he has resourced, and put in a position where either members of parliament now or have won elections to the national executive position. And you go down and you see that really throughout the party in the Ashanti region, to the grassroots level, the polling station executives, constituency executives. A lot of them hold their current positions and they hold allegiance to him. And so when you really want to do the multiplier effect and put these people out there to campaign for the party and galvanize the base, he has that because they're very loyal to him. That is the second strength that he has, that the others who were considered did not have. And that is why they put him out there as a man to do the trick for them, especially in their strongholds. But really strategically, you only don't want him in the Ashanti region. You really want to deploy a NAPO in your stronghold. So you want to put him in the eastern region too. Places where you already have people. For him to go out there and really preach to the choir. Because as you know, NAPO's biggest challenge will be, does he rub off well with the generality of the electorate? That is where the question is. But if you put him in a place where you already have support and people already love the NPP, you're most likely to get him. You're more likely to get him, excite that base, and get them out there voting for you at the polls on December 7th.
Now, of course, since I have all of the three heads, I might as well, tap into your analysis for all of this. Look, if really the goal here for NAPO, the main focus is going to be annexing the Asante region, then let's talk about his strengths and weaknesses there. It is common knowledge that he doesn't get on well with the regional chairman. There are some issues between him and the regional chairman. How is that going to affect his ability to get the job done in the region?
Me?
Sure. Any head will do.
First, I mean, of course, Umpuni has always shown he doesn't support it. But recently, there was a public display of affection, a public reconciliation.
The photo op.
Yes, opportunity where Woodme was shaking hands. It appears to have been orchestrated by the vice president himself, which is also another interesting development. Mostly the candidate, mindful of what he wants now and the new trend, will be the one going around and engaging more. You would not need a third party brokering that kind of piece or making it look like and bringing them together. That's an interesting perspective in and of itself. Yes, but that's always going to be an issue. Politics, people can put aside their differences because there's a common goal. The common goal here is that if you win, even if you have personal problems with me, we are still in the same government and our lives are made easier with the African standard with that. So perhaps that's actually going to be the overriding. You can put aside personal problems or problems of, because now some had just, and it's not always the case anyway, some had reduced the contest to whether or not NAPO had supported Wuntumi's quest. First and foremost, it's not only NAPO that did not support Wuntumi. There were a lot more people. Some of the stalwarts in parliament did not also throw their weight behind. In fact, they were very vociferous in their opposition and also recommended that others be. He doesn't have the same level of problems with them. So there are different rates to this particular conflict. And again, there are on both sides supporters for each grouping. There is a power play currently happening in Asante, which is interesting because the feeling that NAPO can bring it on board, others right from the beginning felt if we don't fight this particular feeling, it would generate into making him what he is today. So that has been part of the conversation right from the beginning. So people equally had their own blocks within the executives, be it within other constituencies, be it even within specific areas, like who gets to be a constituency chairman, wherever it's supposed to be, had been fighting at different levels. As to whether that bridge, that fight, or that difference is finally over, the campaigning proper will show. Where they decide to cooperate and actually decide who takes where. So when they come together, it's a nice thing. It's completely the case. But if they decide that I need to show proof that he's not as unifying, he's not as in control, and he doesn't have the power that people were saying, that would be difficult. That would be problematic. And that would make it very, very difficult for the party to get the unity they wanted out of Asante for votes to come out of. So that would be the other point. And again, we sometimes also reduce it to the regional chairman. He is a politician, he's a human being, he's contested elections, right, from constituency through to what they call it, becoming MP and also becoming minister. He has stepped on several toes, and when it comes to NAPO, there are many. So it's not only in that particular area that there will be a problem with chairman alone. We are talking about the relevance of the campaign. The other people too. Hopefully, all of those people will now put aside their differences, because that's what happens in politics, so that they can forge forward. Or some would like to prove the point that we cannot let it be thrown aside when there is indeed a point now to be shown that he is not the guy who can garner the votes. There are results that will come out of this. Whether the person is willing to put aside the party's victory to pursue this personal vendetta in pursuit of that is a different thing altogether. But after what cameras show, we all know we are too seasoned, we are too evolved in politics to know it does not. People don't resolve problems by holding press conferences or taking pictures out of that. There are real things that gets to resolve these problems. As to whether that has already been done. And I also am uncomfortable with the reduction to the Wuntumi, as if Wuntumi is NAPO's biggest headache in the area, and that when you take out Wuntumi, everybody in the region or relevant in Asante now comes to the table to say, oh, our king has arrived and he shall lead us through.
It's not going to be that simple.
It gives me the same impression. And see, I mean, sometimes you are not sure where some of these ideas come from. Let's explore it further. Now, you hear it more often. Oh, he's royal, so the connection is very, very strong. Please, the parliament website says NAPO is from Pechi number 2. Is NAPO the royal of the corner people in Pechi number 2? And one will presume that when he says he's from there, that means that that's where his mother is from, right? You get what I'm trying to say? Or he is a Kumasi Asante Royal. With which lineage? I mean, these issues will be clarified with time. But it has been part of the campaign up to this point. And I'm not saying that it doesn't help one's campaign and positioning, because one of the things I was said a lot is that, NAPO has the year of the Asante. So if Asante says that NAPO is the chosen one, why would we dispute that? But was there ever any claim close to that?
You mean, did the Asante ever say?
Would he ever be in the position to say, well, this is my chosen one? Would he ever do so? But, I mean, well, it's still campaigning.
So how does NAPO strategize to deal with these, intricacies in the region?
Kojo, first of all, in our part of the world, politics is who gets what.
When and how.
Yes.
Yes, that's the most important thing in our part of the world. And I use that to set the ground for the analysis that I'm about to do. You see, NAPO knows his shortcomings. He knows them. So what he actually does, and does very well, is how to recruit people. He recruits people who then do the work on his behalf. Should I break it down further?
Oh, sure.
So in NAPO, he recruits people who find themselves in positions, some members of parliament, some that you would want to listen to, whose fortunes are tied to NAPO's success. So these people are going to go down and must ensure the work is done. Because if they don't get the work done, and if their master goes down, they go down also. And that's why you hear the General Secretary saying, he's a good mobilizer and all of that. Because he knows how to recruit people. And he doesn't, look, those who are close to him will tell you that he doesn't mind giving you something very precious to him. Because he knows what you can do for him subsequent. Also, he'll tell you about, sometimes when he probably may say a thing or two you do not like, but like the boys would say, that's also part of his shortcomings, which he knows. But his ability to make you smile when you're close to him supersedes the ability to make you cry.
So to clarify, I mean, and this is a question some people will ask: Are you indicating that his strength there is in the ability to buy people's loyalty? How does he recruit them?
No. His strength is to get people to actually help him achieve his goal. And I started by telling you what politics is in our part of the world. But if I want to go further, I'd make reference to J. Kufuor's famous, it is better to be a messenger in a ruling party than a general secretary of an opposition party. If I want to go further, I'll tell you, as much as I don't subscribe to that kind of politics, if you like, follow the political parties and follow, during presidential primary, listen to what they tell their party members. They tell them. And today, if you were to go around, a lot of the youth organizers who are working day and night to make sure that their party wins power is because they feel and believe that if their party wins, the youth organizer is going to be the YEA coordinator of the district. The organizer, all things being equal, will become the NADMO coordinator. We've seen it happening. So when you are a political party going into an election, particularly seeking to break the 8, win a third term, what you must do first of all is to make sure that your base is solid. If your base is not solid, forget it. And so, I am saying that, knowing his shortcomings, he tries as much as possible to get people onto his side who are able to do a good job for him. He personally is also able to do a good job. But, again, he has a shortcomings, which unfortunately is there for all of us to see when it comes to communication. So,
how do you circumvent that and campaign?
Good. Because of your shortcomings when it comes to communication. Today, you have seen and heard that Fifi Boafo becomes spokesperson for him. What that would mean is that NAPO will do the usual party campaign. If you're doing the party campaign, and I quote something that Alhaji Inusaf Husseini told me someday. He said, when you're on the political party platform and you say certain things, sometimes you can be forgiving because they say, that's, the guns, in the spur of the moment, you get carried away and then you say, but today we will not forgive people who say those things. You're also going to go out there and speak to the media. Of course, he has to speak to the media. In fact, I was reading in the US, for instance, where Joe Biden, he has an interview tonight that Americans are looking forward to because he must actually prove to them whether he is the candidate. One of the things that will be happening to NAPO, and I'm sure the people may have started, and in fact, read the General Secretary's statement, Raymond. Read it carefully. He admits something that NAPO openly has never admitted. The General Secretary admits the power challenges. And it's a signal he sends that now going forward, we must begin to do things differently. And once you become a party running mate, it is no longer going to be me, and I can say whatever I want. Because the party's fortunes are also tied to what you say. And the handlers of NAPO know this. They have said that sometimes he uses these comments to cover some of his weaknesses. What they are going to do going forward is to make sure that these weaknesses that he has are addressed, and so he doesn't use those comments to cover them. That's something that will play out for all of us to see. If they do it well, bingo. If they don't, we will be back here and we'll be talking about the fact that, the NAPO candidature didn't help the NPP.
Yeah.
So a lot would depend on how his handlers do it. And a lot would also depend on how his team, and I'll tell you more about that. Let me just say something about the team. Or you want us to go for a break and come?
In fact, let's take a break and come back to this.
Your morning radio.
Winston, you were saying something about the team that he must form.
So he actually has a team around the country. What he has done, and I mean, Raymond, we're talking about, in fact, when he went to, you saw that thing on Facebook, when he went to the party's campaign office, Dr. Bawumia's campaign office, for instance, it was followed by a man. Yes, he had worked at the Education Ministry previously, but currently working at the Works and Housing Ministry as Deputy Minister. I think local government, Vincent Asefwa. He's in Ashanti region. But if you go even to the Western region, Central region, Eastern region, he has a team on the ground. So these people would have a job to do in taking him to the party's base. And I agree with what Professor Ali Duseidu said. NAPO's job really will be to galvanize the party. It will be Bawumia's job to appeal to Ghanaians. But in appealing to the party, Mathhew Opoku Prempeh NAPO must make sure he does not say anything that would hurt Ghanaians. And that's the most important thing. If he says things that in the eyes of Ghanaians, and I'll give you a typical example. All Die Be Die certainly would resonate with party members, but didn't resonate with Ghanaians. And it took Akufo-Addo 4 years to show people that he was not a violent man. So yes, his job is to get to the party's base, but he must also recognize that today, in the era of technology, the digitalization that we're talking about, where today you say something in, the tiniest places of Ghana, and all of us would hear. If he doesn't speak well, we'll hear. And that's why his team has a huge task at hand.
Evans, much has been said about the communication challenges that Dr. Mathhew Opoku Prempeh has had. But it's possible for a person to be rehabilitated, to be trained and groomed, to avoid some of these things. But are there things he may have said in the past that could still end up costing him going forward? For example, Can you see NAPO going to campaign in Keta?
Hello, Kojo.
Yeah, hi,
That's me,
Evans.
right?
Yeah.
No, I don't see him going to campaign in Qatar. Strategically, NPP will not want to do that. As has been said, as I said at the beginning, for me, the strategy should be putting in areas, in constituencies, and in regions where you estimate that you have a strong footing. Put it in your strongholds, put it in the Ashanti region, put it in the eastern region, and isolate constituencies where you already have a strong base. That is a simple strategy, and that's where you deploy it. Definitely not in the Baltimore region. Now, secondly, I think it is in the interest of NAPO himself for him to resign from the energy ministry. It will aid the strategy, because just for a second imagine, Pujo, that we are plunged back into another mini energy crisis, another mini doomsday. Immediately, the focus is going to be on him. You do not want that. I have had people suggest in the party yesterday into this morning that he will stay on as energy minister. That will be a catastrophic mistake. Having stayed on as energy minister will be a mistake. When people actually tell me that the reason why the Kampa was elevated to become Minister of State is because they wanted NAPO to stay on as a substantive minister. But then you empower the Kampa a bit more so that he can go to Parliament and answer those questions, etc., because he's a Minister of State. And he can also act properly, clothed with a bit of authority. That, for me, will be a strategic mistake.
Is that not
step away?
Is that not a vote of confidence being given by the party in his competence as energy minister, that they believe he can keep the lights on?
Well, you have to weigh. In politics, you always have to weigh the cost, you have to weigh your benefits. What is the benefit of putting him there? Let's take your argument for a second, Kojo, that you want to show that you vote of confidence. You have 4 months to an election. If you haven't proven already that he's competent as education minister, competent as energy minister, then why did you put him on your ticket? So he's already shown that. If he hasn't shown that already, then this is a monumental mistake to give him the nod as your running mate, especially when head-to-head he's going to come up against Professor Evans Mensah. So for the competence argument, for me, it doesn't come up for even a debate on whether or not to keep him as energy minister. You simply want to win an election. You do not want to place him in a position where he becomes very exposed to scandals possibly, but generally a sector that can turn very ugly very quickly. Because sometimes, for no fault of yours, under the NDC we saw when the pipeline transporting gas from Nigeria to Ghana got erupted and there was a challenge technically, we had good stuff. Immediately it's going to be focused on you as energy minister. It has nothing to do with your abilities. It has everything to do with circumstances beyond your control. And then you put NAPO in a position where he will have to go to Parliament if an urgent question is filed, or he's hauled before a parliamentary committee. And if he's there, and I am the NDC, I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to get my members of Parliament in the House to file urgent questions, but also at the committee level, drag him to come and answer questions on everything in the energy sector, and put him in a position where you can have something on him that you can criticize, where you put him in a position where you expose him to public criticism too. That is why he needs to step away from the energy ministry.
That's an interesting perspective. You've also talked about, you've mentioned what the NDC might seek to do if he remains minister in terms of strategy. But what else is there? Let's say he resigns and just hits the campaign trail. with what you have all canvassed as the target, the goal to galvanize the base in the places where the NPP is already popular, what should be or what can be the NDC's strategy to counter this ticket? Evans, I'll start with you.
I mean, first of all, because he comes, and the beauty of this year's election, and that I really love this year's election, is that every single individual on the ticket of both NDC and NPP comes with a track record in government. You have the vice president who's in government, has a track record as the chairman of the economic management team. You have John Mahama, who has been president before, comes with his own track record as president. You have Mathhew Opoku Prempeh, who himself comes with a own track record as former education minister. And then now you have NAPO as the running mate with a track record in the education and now as energy minister. So if you're talking about strategy for the NDC, what do? You go to his track record. Look at the way he handles the SHS. Look at the way he handled the education ministry. Look at the way he's handled the energy sector. You obviously will have to look at some of the comments that he's made as education minister. That caused quite a bit of pain for the party at the time. Look at his recent comments around the Doomsok crisis that we faced early this year, where he told us when people were asking for a timetable that go and draw up your own timetable. That's definitely our tools that you can use and deploy against them. You have to find those and deploy them very effectively. That's one strategy, for example, that you can use. And then, of course, in this country, if you tag somebody as arrogant and you consistently use that and you paint him with that brush effectively in communities across the country where being meek and being submissive and talking gently and coming out as we used to call John Kufuor the gentle giant, that sells. Any tag of any semblance of arrogance will kill you at the polls. Don't go far. Just ask Akufo himself. He struggled to try and deal with that task. If you are the NDC, you want to go out there and campaign with that particular message. And it remains to be seen how the NPP will try and counter that in the way they brand and present him to all of us as electorate.
Now, Ray, I mean, these shortcomings have been parroted for long before NAPO became running mate. So is there really new ammunition in there for the NDC? If so far, pointing out NAPO's shortcomings hasn't stopped him from becoming the running mate, will it really be news to the electorate? Will it really be useful ammunition for them to be parroting something we already know?
I do not think that any target at saying any negative thing about NAPO will affect, let's say, somebody who is a die-hard supporter of NAPO today. In fact, they know it. If you say each one of them, they can explain it to you. If you mention arrogance, they will say the man is confident, and confidence is sometimes misconstrued. If you talk about his comments on education, they will say you are identifying one or two comments you may not like compared to the man's stellar performance of introducing your biggest safety net program in the Republic of Ghana. Is that really how you want to do your politics? If we bring in the Kita example, they say, because his opponents took it out of context, you are also parroting what was taken out of context. So there is response for each of these ones. But there is also admission that, in fact, in a sum, they will say, it's not interesting that your only problem with the candidature is whether or not you believe him to be arrogant or not. Is it really all that you want to find wrong with a man who is seeking to partner to be vice president of this republic? Is it that you are admitting he's competent? Is it that you are admitting that in all the other areas he has excelled and that there could be a slight flaw to do with his personal attitude and engagement with people? Is that really your biggest one? And if it was, compared to all the positives that you have not, or all the things you have not said are his negatives, does that mean that that's the only flaw? If that's the only flaw, as humans, why not give him the chance? Why? We've had people with other flaws. Which flaw would you prefer? Competence or arrogance? I mean, so I think what has been clearly dictated now, and I heard it in Nanabi consistently, is that they're not going to say, oh, yeah. We really welcome your views on this man and we are working at improving. No. They will say he is a perfect candidate. He may have flaws and dismiss the ones they feel are not true. Now, as to whether that will work on the floating voter population, I don't think so. I also do not think that even the larger population would consider more, and that's the difficulty here. You think about it slightly this way. You are given opportunity in 2016, even before 2016. Some who felt Akufo-Addo is not really somebody they wanted to vote for, thought if we have somebody technocratic in nature, comes with some integrity in the person of Mahmoud Bawumia, who appears to have ideas, politics is shifting in the direction that now people are not only partnering with people merely because they are from a part of the country or the balancing skills are what they bring on board. They are bringing some level of competence. That grouping, though it's not the majority in this country, still exists. After all the difficulties we've gone through, that grouping is looking for something beyond, oh, I need somebody who assigns a base to actually vote for. Is that group that's likely to take other matters that will be thrown out there serious? That group is not going to be convinced merely by saying, oh, well, he has been minister here, he's been minister there. That is also the difficulty there. So, yes, nobody in the NPP who's an NAPO friend today will say, oh, the question was, okay, he's arrogant, and so what? How does that give you bread and butter? How does that solve your problems? If he is arrogant and is able to solve the problems of this country, why not?
Raymond, let me just make a point to buttress what you're saying. You see, watch the NPP critically. By 2020, you saw Akufo-Addo leading his campaign.
Yeah.
In 2016, Bawumia practically led that campaign for Akufo-Addo. By 2024 January, you had seen Bawumia say that, oh, I was offering support services. And they make reference to Julius Debra in the north that time, who said, oh, if they say Bawumia is from the north, his mate, Aplanke, his mate. The real deal is John Mahama. So we agree with him. Now is the time. Watch this. So you have a Bawumia. So outwardly, out there, they tell you, oh, but the candidate is Bawumia. He's the one you're voting for. In the party, NAPO is doing the job for you. So they make it very difficult for you because now, and look, the NDC by 2020, remember if you realize, were actually always attacking Bawumia.
Yeah, he was.
While Nadu was the one leading the campaign.
Yeah. If I were to make this point here consistently,
yes.
So, as if you have elevated the running mate to main candidate.
So when they were attacking Bawumia, then Nadu starts doing the campaign. He's now doing the campaign, and so the person you are attacking is based in the northern part of the country. Together with his wife, they are campaigning. So you don't hear much from them. And so then you realize that, okay, so you are campaigning, oh, then about the Bawumia, they said that. But they changed the strategy of the campaign, and I'll let Akufo-Addo lead the campaign. So you can see now, Bawumia will lead the campaign in the other aspects. He's going to be the one who will be engaging. That's why he's engaging all the people. And that's why I said some time ago that in choosing the NDC's running mate, they looked for somebody who may not hurt the ticket more than what you will bring on board. It's a case of not necessarily what you bring on board, but if you don't bring anything, don't bring a baggage. And they settled for Professor Nana Jane because they believed that she doesn't carry a baggage. So the strategy for me really is that you would see that Bawumia today, if the NDC begins to attack NAPO, Bawumia will be campaigning and people will be paying attention to him, then you are actually targeting the wrong person, while the person you should be targeting is the one whose picture we're going to see.
Interesting. Lots of strands to this. Let's look at the future, right, beyond 2024. Because each of these parties, everybody who's putting themselves up for this election expects to win, right? So let's look beyond 2024. Evans, what's the long-term thinking here of the NPP, right? If indeed they break the 8, Dr. Bawumia becomes president, NAPO becomes vice president. is the NPP ready for a time in the future when Dr. Mathhew Opoku Prempeh will be their presidential candidate?
Well, it's a natural progression, is it not? I mean, it's a natural progression that once you become a vice president, you would naturally expect that you will make that progression to become the president. I mean, every politician is in this business with an ambition to climb to the very, very top. Only a few get there, and it doesn't hurt your chances at all if you get selected as a running mate. And so, of course, down the line, that's Mathhew Opoku Prempeh's ambition. But that isn't a challenge. The real challenge for me, and a big unknown, is what happens if the NPP loses elections. If you lose elections and they go into opposition, you expect a Bawumia to still want to continue. And the NPP's tradition is therefore, as you see, we saw with Akufo-Addo himself. People contested him in the primaries when they were in opposition, but he won each of them and stood for the party as a candidate. You will expect that if they go into opposition, the vice president currently, Dr. Bawumia, will again contest in the primary. You expect people to indeed contest him in the primaries in opposition. The key question then becomes, will Mathhew Opoku Prempeh contest it? Will Dr. Bawumia select him again as his running mate if they go into opposition? Those are the big unknowns, and for me, the jury's out on that. And I guess it is something that Bawumia would have spent some time thinking about. What happens if you go into opposition? It is somebody you can trust to still remain your ally, like you were Akufo-Addo's ally in the position throughout, and never for once let your own ambition to be president overshadow the man who gave you opportunity to be his running mate. And for me, that's a key question going forward if they go into position.
Interesting.
And let me just add something to what Evans has said. Now, if Dr. Bawumia is unsuccessful in December, in Mathhew Opoku Prempeh's own interest, he must support Dr. Bawumia to make sure that Dr. Bawumia becomes president. In fact, because you cannot go and contest him.
Really?
Well, we'll be here. In making that choice itself, Dr. Bawumia would have known that I am choosing somebody who, if I don't win, we can come back again. Because politically, in our part of the world, if you go into an election with somebody, then the next minute you're coming to tell us that, in this country, it doesn't work like that.
But is that not what the opposition is even accusing Bawumia of doing now? Weirdly, even though President Akufo-Addo is not going to be on the ballot. But beyond that, let's not forget, by your own analysis, all three of you, by the way, and many others, by your own analysis, the strength of NAPO is that he will galvanize the base. He will galvanize the party itself, which suggests that
flag-bearer elections are party internal elections.
Well, I mean, that is the strength of NAPO, right? Which suggests that it is not the strength of Bawumia. Okay? And maybe the results of the super delegates and the delegate, the main flag bearer election might bear that analysis out, that Dr. Bawumia is not as all-encompassing as Akufo-Addo was in the party. So if that is the case, then is it not a real risk that Dr. Bawumia is taking by picking someone he himself admits is more popular within the party than him?
No, but Kojo, I do not think when people mention the grassroots thing, they are talking about all parts of the country. So one will think that in Northeast, but NAPO is more popular than. I hope you get my point. Or in the central region, NAPO is more popular. There was something that became a problem. The treatment of Alan John Kojeche Martin, you get what I'm trying to say, created a problem for. Why did I say? A problem for Asante NPPs. Let's not get it wrong. So, at the core, many people felt the party was moving away from them. Bringing NAPO on board is a form of assurance that even if you are not number one, you are still part of the most important people in the NPP. That there is an Asante on the ticket of the party. I hope you get my point. So that reassurance was not only to getting everybody on board, it was also to give hope to people who felt, well, that we have no hope at all. Because that thing really worked on the minds of people who felt, why is Chamatin being treated this way? Why is the person we thought was going to be the next after Akufo-Addo being treated this way? Is it taking away our power and contribution? By bringing NAPO on board, the belief is that the hope is being restored. And that's why they don't say it out there, but that's the belief. That now he can go back to the same people and tell them, see, it all is not lost. You have a running mate there. So let them not convince you that the party has been taken away from you and that you are no longer in control and that you can sit at home and let the party go into opposition before we rebuild and rewind and come back to the original owners of it. NAPO is your man. He is intricately yours and you still have hope in him. That to me that's why they keep mentioning the Ashanti region. Because it is not that there's a belief that NAPO will galvanize even the base in Northeast or in Savannah or in any other part of the country.
You may have heard of the Edru Mesot, phrase at the time the MP was going into the primaries. And so, Raymond, you're very right on that. Inwardly, internally, the NPP will admit to this. But Kojo, the decision to appoint somebody that you believe is a party person does not necessarily mean that you're not a party person. So Dr. Bawumia could be a party person, but then decide that in this campaign, I want to focus on this group of people because they are also an area that I bet I appeal to the most than anybody. So if I am going to be the one to appeal to this group of people, I might as well get somebody who will do my party job for me. It's not necessarily an indication that he cannot do the party job, because let me tell you something. There are people within the NPP who have said to me that no matter what they do, and these are very grassroots people who've said, if Bawumia is not president in 2024, they will bring him back and again until he becomes president. There are people like that.
In any case, after 2024, the dynamics really changes. Yeah. John Mahama, for example, even if he wins 2024, cannot contest the next election.
So that's the point. So there are people who say, oh, like we did to Akufo-Addo, we'll do same for Bawumia. But Bawumia is better placed appealing to the non-party members, in this election. And that's what he really wants to do. So if I want to do that, I must not leave my party. So if I'm not going to leave my party, I must get somebody who can appeal to the party, particularly in our strongholds. But that's not the end, because you will realize that Bawumia is going to be starting his campaign from the north. Again, let me just give you the votes, because you realize that in the northern region, the NDC's vote, the present-day northern, is not more than 100,000. It's not even up to 100,000. It's in the upper east, that is about 150,000. Yeah. These areas don't have huge margins. And consistently, which we have shown, with the coming on board of Dr. Bawumia, he's been able to close that gap, even as running mate. Now that he is presidential candidate, it means that there's a lot to this election in 2024. And the real battle really could probably be the northern part of this country.
Right. Evans, I'm going to give you the final word. We have about 30 seconds. And the only thing on my mind right now is this. NAPO is running mate. Does this make the NDC's job harder? I think we may have lost Evans. Oh, dear. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you guys do a quick yes or no on that one before we go.
It may be in the Ashanti region, but as to whether the counter effect across the country will be the same, I don't think so.
Churchill?
Well, in the Ashanti region, it could make the NDC's work harder. In the northern regions, in the 5 regions of the north, Dr. Bawumia is the one who makes their work difficult. But of course, as we saw in 2020, the elections would not only be won in the 5 regions of the north and in the Ashanti region, they'll be won in the whole country.
All right. Well, thank you all for that.